The topic is bad certifications. So why don't we start by walking through your bad experience? Let's walk through a made-for-TV
real life
version.
example. Yeah,
Okay.
this isn't one of those one of those
non-naming
recipe
names.
shows where we should say, here's what I made earlier. This is a real life example, right? So we can maybe talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, let's retread that story.
So, all right, basically, I decided to go ahead and get certified as a product owner through Scrum Alliance.
CSPO, right?
CSPO.
Yeah.
Yep. And although I would have preferred to do that in person, just from a financial and timing perspective, I happen to have some time available over this next week. This was literally yesterday. I started the first day of 2. This second day would have been actually completing right about now.
Yeah.
And I don't have to be tending that second day because it was that bad. So a little bit of background is I do have product experience. I've been working in product as a product owner for 5 years, so I'm not coming in this as a brand new person. I do have Scrum knowledge. I feel pretty confident in that. But that said, there were 19 people in this class, the majority of which had minimal to no knowledge. So this was the first time that they were being exposed to this, right? So that's number one. At some point during this, and so I understood, all right, okay, he did a little survey, people were asking questions like, okay, oh, I see there's a lot of BAs and a lot of PMPs in this class, so we're gonna go ahead and guide it in that direction. My first thought was like, wah, wah. Like I'm not a BA or a PMP, and all right, but I'll go with the flow. And we went through lots of Scrum basic, literally the Scrum guide. Here's a person who talked to us for multiple hours. There was very little to no engagement with the actual audience of 20 people, including myself. And first of all, there was an exercise that came up where he asked us to do a RACI chart. Essentially, it was just a quad. And in this quad, if you can imagine, one corner was an other group, one corner was a Scrum Master group, one corner was the PO, and one corner was the dev. And there were multiple then stickies that were things that he would ask us to place where they are most appropriate according to whose responsibility it was. And the one example was definition of done. So we woke up and went out into breakout groups and discussed this. Now I referenced the Scrum Guide, and the Scrum Guide very clearly states on the next to last page, if you want to look it up, that if there is already a definition of done that has been established by your organization, then that must be followed minimally. If there isn't one established, then it is up to the Scrum team, the entire Scrum team, to create the definition of done. So when he was going through and talking about this, he said it was up to the dev team to create the definition of done, and I challenged him on this, and I said, well, isn't it the Scrum team's responsibility to do this? Because he was correcting our kind of chart. And so he went through and made a couple of references and basically said, well, no, it's actually the devs. And as a Scrum Master, I would need to uphold the devs' opinion on this. And it would probably not be a bad idea for them to consult with, and I might encourage them to consult with the product owner, but that would really be up to them. And it's not up to me to tell them what they should and shouldn't be doing. So again, I challenged him. I brought him to that specific comment page or comment in the actual Scrum Guide, and asked him. I said, at this point, you've given me 3 different answers, like basically the product owner's responsibility, the dev's responsibility, or coordination between the two. And I'm saying it's actually none of those. It should be the dev team, including Scrum Master, product owner. Right. So here was the first experience. And then that ultimately led into a rant about Agile Alliance and how much he despised it, which I thought was so odd, being that he was providing a Scrum Alliance certification, but how much he hated it, and they were awful and money hungry and all these things. And I had to kind of calm him down, going like, okay, there's benefits to all of these organizations. Not all of them are perfect. I happen to be a member of all of them, and I pull some good from all of these places. And then finally, towards the end of the day-long class, of which I spent 8 hours still waiting to figure out what information am I going to get about a product owner, since this is why I'm taking this class? And at this point now I've spent 8 hours and learned nothing about a product owner. So then we had a Q&A, and I decided to stay back and kind of listen in and maybe ask a couple of questions. One of the questions, something came up about Jira from someone else, and he went on a rant. And when I say a rant, holy crap, a rant about how much he hated Jira. It is up to us as individuals to make sure we are in control of our own destiny. We make the decisions, and we should never choose a company that uses Jira. It is awful. It is there for management to do nothing more than to micromanage and to push down on the developers and to monitor them and to punish them, and right? And I agreed with him to some extent, and I said, you know what, I can tell you that I've seen these things happen. I have. But what I hear you saying over and over and over again, it was that there were people that were using it in this way.
Right.
And so my objection is that the tool isn't the problem, but the people and the manner in which they're deciding to use it is the problem. And I also brought up thinking that there are 19 other people, most of which have zero experience, and he has just told them never to work for a company that uses Jira, which is the #1 industry standard, and now will limit their job pool exponentially. And I mentioned those things to him, and he got very angry and basically said, it's up to you. You get to choose, and I choose. I choose not to ever work for a company that uses Jira because it is awful and all these things. And I said, I'm very frustrated with Jira. I get that, but I can't blacklist Jira. Every company that I've worked as a product owner has used Jira. Absolutely awful. And surprisingly so, because I did my research and realized in hindsight that honestly Scrum Alliance did a very poor job of representing, this is just my opinion, I would hypothesize that the biographies and the information that is provided on the actual trainers are probably provided by the trainers or the companies that they work for.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the case.
Yeah.
And they're probably not validated either.
Right. So yeah, that was my intensely horrible experience. So had I completed today's 8 hours, which all you need to do to get your CSPO is just attend 2 8-hour days, I would have been awarded a CSPO badge, and I could have proudly placed that on and said, I'm certified as a product owner. However, my goal was not to go in and get the badge. I really did want to enrich myself and my career. So I chose to actually abandon the class and find another more valid trainer.
That's a nice way of saying you staged a walkout.
That's right.
I did. I mean,
So many questions. I have so many questions.
Yeah, that's right. There's a lot here, right?
I don't know where to start. First of all, I'm proud of you for staging a walkout. I feel that I should, in some way, shape, or form, try to present the other side. I mean, I already know. I can already hear every corporate dirtbag I've ever worked for on the other side. Just keep your mouth shut and get your cert and go apply for your jobs. What's your problem? How come you can't just be for every person who, like you, who walks out, there's 18 other people who just kept their mouth shut and got their cert. That's the arguing point of this one that I can't, I feel I can bring up, but I can't really support.
No. And that is exactly what I refuse. I mean, I refuse. I hope that at some point I will be able to be providing some quality education for other potential product owners or people who are looking to do kind of change in their organizations. And I want to do that through experience and learning from people who can, as I said, enrich me. And this was not that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So given that certifications are a necessary evil, they're here to stay. I mean, you just can't avoid that. The thing that's important here is this. If you look at the graph of the number of certificants or people that have been provided certifications and had their precious dollars robbed off of them, the graph has just gone up exponentially over the last few years. And my mind goes back to where it all started. This industry really started with PMI. Initially, that graph was fairly flat. And people used to say, I'm one of only 200 certified PMPs in the world. And it went from 200 to 1,000 to, just through the roof.
Right, yeah.
What's really a shame is the organization put out a goal. saying, by this Christmas, we hope to reach 50,000. Who would be the 50,000th? Right? Really? This is your goal. And this is continuing with these other bodies, Scrum Alliance.
Sure.
Agile Alliance, anybody really. You name an alliance or certified provider, they're all in it for the money, and they really don't care. So as a result, they've got these trainers, to your point earlier, out there that can stamp out certificates. And with COVID, I think that acted as the gasoline on this fire, because people could stay home, people could get a certification from somebody who is of dubious quality anywhere in the world.
For a third of the price.
For less than a third in places. These people are offshore. So if you're looking at it from your own perspective, you say, well, it's the same Agile Alliance certificate or Scrum Alliance certificate that I'm getting, but I'm getting it for a fraction of the price. And I don't have to travel. There's no flight costs, hotel costs. So consequently, the number of certified folks just went up even more through the pandemic. So yeah, I understand all about do your research, right, and all of that stuff. But that said, if the bodies were really looking to put out quality in terms of people that can come out and practice their craft, as opposed to just waive a certificate, we wouldn't be in this spot. Unfortunately, they're just in it for the money. So it comes down to that, I believe. That's what I say. The other thing is, as far as these trainers, they have to be certified themselves. And I personally believe there's a huge gap here, which is you can get a certificate by sitting in a class for 2 days, get the next one. There are many that you can get that way. You may once in a while have to take a little test here and there, and that's it. At no point is it a requirement to have worked in the field.
Well, that might not be true, because the Scrum Alliance, you have to prove a certain amount of expertise. I remember when I took the AACSM, you have to prove that you worked as a Scrum Master or in a capacity that counted towards being a Scrum Master for, I don't remember what it was, 18 months. I don't remember what it was.
It is. You're right.
Like
so there's minimal requirements.
Now, I only have the entry PO cert, because after taking the ACSM, I was like, I don't really see a lot of value in going back and getting the advanced or professional anything, quite honestly. So
you're right.
I don't know what you need to go to the professional level above the advanced level. I don't know.
You need the advanced certificate is what you need.
Yeah, but I don't know how much more industry experience they require past.
I'm not aware of it. I've gone through it. I'm not aware of it. What I know also is that from the professional getting up to CST, you do need to shadow people. You need to get certain number of hours, as it were, coaching hours under your belt, etc. But that's academic. That is not practicing, using the knowledge you've acquired for a living. Working for a company, doing it in the field, right? I think that's lacking personally. I mean, look, the PMI requires 1,000 hours of something, project admin, something like that, before they'll grant you a certificate. But that's not real work practicing as a project manager. You're doing something to say I've worked, essentially. Which I think is a gap. I really do. I think if you are at the top level providing certificates as a certified trainer, you need to have worked in the industry as that person for a while. It's as a PO for a number of years, perhaps even led something senior in the company. I think that's fair. I don't know how you don't do that and still come out with the quality that's needed.
I can say with 100% certainty that for the CSPO, that this was a certified Scrum trainer for product owners, and he did not have any product owner experience firsthand. Now, he was a Scrum Master and a developer, practiced both, knew the Scrum guide forward and backward, interpreted it uniquely, but knew the Scrum guide, but had zero, firsthand knowledge. What he did do was work with product owners as a Scrum Master, but that's not the same. That's not the same thing.
Is that like a movie based on the book? Is that like a TV movie based on the book? I don't ever get to take the
you can do it this
opinionated.
Time. I'll go the other side.
You go to the other side, Owen, because I need someone to back up my rant for a second. All right, if you tell me that you're a developer and you're the Scrum Master for your team, I'm automatically suspect. I'm suspect, because a lot of times I see technical leads or in a supervisory level in development who plays the role of the Scrum Master. They think that they think the Scrum Master's job is just to like run the meetings and go down the board and be like, what are you working on? What are you working on? What are you working on? How come you hadn't taken this item? You should be done with this item. Pick this next item up. And that's what they think is a Scrum Master. Right. But beyond my normal incendiary rant, because I'm on the heavily edited Brian cam right now, I would challenge those people to say, like, have they ever climbed the ladder in their organization to lobby for change? Have they ever in their organization connected with leadership to try to influence the way that product does roadmaps, or to influence the way that budgets are done, or to influence the way that teams are broken down, or to lobby for small teams, and to stay out of particular key discussions about the way certain things are developed specifically? Like, have they done that while also serving in the capacity of Scrum Master? And usually I find out that's not true. No, they haven't. No, they're just the boss with a new title because they think that's what most applies. That's what I have seen, and I'll stand by that one. And I'm happy to die on that hill.
I have experienced and witnessed the same thing. What's interesting is that I didn't know that the animosity that there is, the undertone of animosity that there is in so many organizations, and it may be something similar to what you're describing, between development and even Scrum Masters, and maybe it's Scrum Master / developer integrated, and the product owner, where I have always worked truly as part of that Scrum team. Right. And embraced that and worked collaboratively with my Scrum Master.
Yeah.
And I'm finding that that's not necessarily the case, where you've got the villain product owner who's the dictator trying to shove things down your throat. I mean, I haven't personally ever done that or learned to do that or experienced that. So that's just not the way I learned to work, fortunately.
So I'm going to take the contrarian view because we have to.
It's time.
Arguing Agile.
It's
time. Yeah. Brian, anybody on the team could play the role of a Scrum Master. Why not a developer? Why not a tester? They're self-organizing, right?
I'll take a tester over a developer any day of the week, because their discipline lends itself to what a Scrum Master does. It empowers a team, unblocks a team, drives out into the organization for what the team needs rather than a developer, because there is a chance with a tester, there's a chance of I feel you need an extraordinary developer to be able to both see the technical domain in front of them, the business problem in front of them, and how it connects to what connects to the customer. There's three things. There's the internal team, the external to the rest of the business, but still internal to the company, and then external from the company to the customer. There's three different viewpoints when you're talking about any one thing. And that person needs to see those three perspectives. So I guess what I'm saying, to wrap what I'm saying, is there needs to be whoever is playing the role, playing around. It's good to own land. Whoever's playing the role needs to have a certain level of empathy for a wide range of audience.
So staying on the opposite stance, I'll say, isn't that what we have the POs for and product managers? They talk to the customers. They're the voice of the customer. We talk to them. They talk to the customer.
I'm sorry. I wasn't listening. Say that again. I'm sorry. I didn't catch any of that.
So the product owner was the advocate and the translator for the customer to the developer.
So the developer doesn't need to think about that and have empathy for the customer. They're too far removed.
Sorry.
Wrong.
I still didn't catch any of that. I'm sorry. Like in the world that you brought up, somehow everybody on the team doesn't talk to the customer. Like that's what's getting lost. So why I'm losing what you're saying. Maybe in the editing it'll be more clear to what you're saying. Yeah. Can you please restate what you just said?
I will restate. The developer who is playing the part of a Scrum Master, in this case, you're saying need to have empathy for the customer.
Yes.
And I'm saying, as that developer taking on that hat, which is very uncomfortable, by the way, that the developer would argue, why do I have to be empathetic with the customer? Isn't that the product owner's job? They, after all, are the voice of the customer. You tell us what, and we'll figure out how, and leave me alone. I'm going back to the basement with my team.
Okay, you get him, Stormy, and then I'll jump on after I have him.
So, as a good product owner, so number one, I should be, or a good product owner should be involving the entire Scrum team with the customer. So one of the practices that I regularly enact is getting my development team and the Scrum Master, dependent on if they're assigned directly to our team or potentially multiples, but getting them involved with regular interactions with the customer. And what I've found to be very effective is, and beyond just the sprint review, so I'm talking about literally that middle of so we get feedback loop, we're getting that feedback loop in sprint review, but as a product owner, in between those 2 weeks, I'm continuously going back, or should have scheduled time, to work with my friendlies or people that I am kind of checking in with and saying, here's what we're moving forward with. I might have some really low fidelity ideas. And that's a meeting that I have found intensely beneficial to bring my development team into, and all of a sudden, and oftentimes those development teams have never experienced anything like that. So they're developing, or we have an idea, and I'm going to put it in front of a customer, and I'm going to do kind of an A/B test, or I'm going to do some low fidelity type thing, and go like, tell me how you would use this. Tell me how would you use this? And all of a sudden they're seeing themselves get stuck because they have a modal popped up and it says start, and right below it there's a start on the bottom of the screen, and they're going, I'm confused, which start? And all of a sudden I have a developer that's going like, oh, I can see why that would be confusing for the end user. Sure. Light bulbs are going off. So I think that's on the product owner absolutely should be on the product owner. Everyone should be empathizing with the end user. That's who we're building for. And all of a sudden, oh my gosh, the mind shift change of that development team. So that's been amazing. Number 2, just a point that I wanted to make to yours, and that is that if you have a good Scrum Master, and you have a Scrum Master who is instilling all of the knowledge and values and truly helping your team embody whatever framework you happen to be using, but Agile principles or Scrum or XP or Kanban, whatever it is, I mean, ultimately, they should be working themselves out of a job, right? So ultimately, we should have a development team that can be able to make those decisions and facilitate a meeting because they are mature enough or have become mature enough to do that, right? So if you've got a good Scrum Master and you've got a mature team, there is definitely a possibility that you could have a team that is able to be self-functioning in that way without necessarily the overarching constant eye of a Scrum Master.
So while I agree with everything you said, I'm going to stay on this side. I'll put on my defensive posture. So as a developer, you're saying, why are things not getting done in the sprint? But then you involve me with all these meetings with the customer and everything else, and it's just a waste of time, really, for developers. That's somebody else's job. You take the Scrum Master if you want. Take the BA. Just leave us developers alone. What do you say to that?
So, I mean, we're empirical, right?
Oh, I was going to say, you're fired. Get off my team.
No, so I'm going to meet you where you are. So try to figure out, why is it that you're feeling that way, right? So you are pushing back because do you not have enough time? You're feeling stressed. You don't have enough time to get done what you need to get done. Your needs aren't being met. You don't have the tools you need. I mean, what is it about this? Do we not have trust, right? Have I not created that trust? And you don't see the value in it because maybe you haven't tried it. So I'm going to meet you where you are and say, you know what? Let's have an experiment. And I'm not asking you to do this every week or multiple times a week, maybe once a sprint, maybe once every other sprint, right? So that you can stay related. And I have never had a team that didn't get so much out of those meetings and feel like, and have light bulbs go off and go like, wow. So I would ask you, and say, you know what, I hear what you're saying, and I would try to do a little of exploration and figure out where you're coming from. You're pushing back, and I want to try and figure out why. And whether I can or not, I'm going to ask you to trust me and just come to one. See if we can get some value out of that, and then we're going to talk about it in the retrospective.
Okay, well, I'm going to stay on this side just for this one last bit. It's very uncomfortable here. Okay, Stormy, I can do that, but, my matrix manager wants me to log the hours I do and what I'm doing. How do I log this? I just spent time with the customer. I'm not developing, so I'm afraid I'm going to be judged because they're the ones that are judging me, evaluating me, etc. So that's going to come down badly on me. I won't get the raise I want because they're going to see fewer hours worked. My hands on keyboard.
Okay.
They're fired too.
Yeah. So now I hear an issue with psychological safety here immediately. So I would be collaborating at this point probably with the Scrum Master. That's an impediment for you, right? So I'm hearing some issues with trust and psychological safety. Dependent on the dynamics in the office, it might be something that I feel comfortable kind of addressing, interacting individually. It may be something that I want to, and probably most appropriate for me to get the Scrum Master involved and make sure that they're aware and see if we can speak to this person and make sure that they understand where we're coming from, make sure that they get on the right page with us so that you're not feeling the pressure that you're going to be somehow punished, right? And so we can come back to you and say, you know what, this has been cleared, we've got it okayed, we've created a bucket for you to put your time in. So that's probably how I'd address that.
All right, I'm off the other side. I don't like being there.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know how you do it, week in, week out.
I know.
What are your thoughts?
I don't have any thoughts.
You have so many
My mind is
thoughts.
a quiet rage at this point. You guys you've funneled it down to the Scrum Master's job of driving around the organization to figure out, like, wait a minute, is this person's development manager looking at them from the perspective of how many hours are you punching into an actual development work versus doing, quote, non-development work or non-productive work? I got to put it that way, right?
Right.
Like, it's not non-productive. Like, I as a product owner would be, what's the word? Incised? Is that the word? Like, incensed? Incised? I don't know.
Incensed?
No,
Yeah, incensed.
Like,
Incentivized
I would be,
incensed?
no,
I don't know.
enraged would be my clear
Yeah.
word. In a matrix organization, I have to assume that my developers that are on my team as a product owner are under the supervisory level of some development manager or director of development or somebody somewhere else, and then maybe my testers are under some test manager or something like that.
Sure.
And maybe all the product owners are under one product, and maybe the Scrum Masters are under whatever. If we're lucky enough to have Scrum Masters, maybe they're under some Agile coach or something like that organizationally, or maybe developers or people are playing their role half-time or whatever, part-time, and we don't really have any. The nice thing about organizations like that, like, I used to not like organizations like that, because I feel that if they're not valuing the role of having somebody as an organizational change agent full-time, they really don't understand. They don't really understand agility, and they don't really care about improving, and all that stuff is just like nonsense to them. You know what I mean? It's fluff. I don't know a better way to explain it. I used to think that way, and then I still sort of think that way. But when my developers ask me, like, hey, what other than running the events, what should I be doing as a Scrum Master? I'm like, well, you should be climbing in the organization to your next supervisory level and the level above that to implement change that helps our team, that unblocks our team. And if one of the blockers of our team is, for example, we're all measured individually with the number of check-in, check-outs or whatever.
Right. Lines of code.
Or something like that. We're all individually measured. At the end of the year, our performance is measured based on that, or the number of bugs or something like that. We all work as a team, and everything gets checked in, and it needs a couple of code review, check off, whatever on the PR, and a couple different people to approve the PR or whatever. Approvals, that's what it's called.
It is called that.
Why are the metrics, the hard metrics I'm being judged by, why are they one way? And then the entire way that I work day to day is completely separated from what I'm judged on. So I should be judged on the teamwork, the whole team, and then the bonuses and all that stuff should be collective as a team. And then the pushback on that, I already know the pushback on that. You don't need to.
I've already lost
yell at me
that.
with the pushback. The pushback of that one is like, well, what happens if somebody slacks on the team? Well, why don't you leave that to the team to
They'll
deal
figure
with?
it out. Yeah.
Why don't you leave that to the team to deal with? And then like, you don't think that the test manager is not going to hear the gripes of the team members saying, like, my test person is super slow? Or you don't think that the development manager, who owns all the developers across the whole organization, is not going to hear that you got one developer that's super slow with everything? You don't think they're going to hear that? Like, what you're trying to solve
Doesn't even warrant solving.
It doesn't even. First of all, it's not your problem to solve.
Right.
It now is a manager in the organization's problem to solve. It always was. First of all, it always was. This is the whole reason to have management in the organization. If we roll the clocks back to 1913 and we go all the way back to the core of the original management in organizational design. Like, those managers' job was to see who was and was not doing as prescribed on the checklist, and then to call them out on it and to deal with things. So why would you go and create a chart that says, I'm going to go pick up pig iron and it should take 56 steps to go from that pile to the train car to drop it off, and I've got one employee who takes 80 steps and takes 3 times longer than the other employees? You've documented it. You know how long it takes a normal employee. You know that person's not cutting it. Why are you not stepping in and doing your job? Now we've taken this discussion of, like, you know what I mean? We've taken the discussion back to the core of where a lot of our discussions go to, is like, why does management know these problems and they don't do anything about it?
Right. No, absolutely spot on.
I think we're getting way away from some of the Agile principles. We're talking about
You're right.
Self-organizing teams.
You're right.
And so the opportunity to say, within a team, typically we have different levels of expertise, people who have different experience levels, different interests. And typically I have found, left to their own devices, teams actually find great ways to create that balance. Now, if you have somebody coming in and just truly being dead weight and not pulling their weight, rather than someone who's just trying hard or maybe been assigned something that they're just not good at or not aware of, and then you have a team. I mean, I've seen multiple teams where we have somebody who's a more junior and they will pair program with somebody who's more senior, and all of a sudden now we have a stronger team for it. This is not something that I would step in on or ask management to step in on. And if we do, we have created already a break in trust, micromanagement, and we're going away from the principles that we want to instill in these teams.
Yeah. I'll give you the opposite of that from a product perspective. I was at an organization one time where I was product manager, and I was not in charge of hiring in any way, shape, or form any of the developers on the team. I don't remember the director of development, somebody on that level, the director of development. So the director of development hired all of the developers, and I was the product manager. And I had 2 teams at that organization, and the director of development purely used offshore talent. All the developers were offshore. And all the developers that were offshore were also there was a mix of senior and junior devs, but the way that this director of development he hired front end developers and he hired back end developers, and there was like 1 or 2 people on the whole team, or across both teams. There was like 1 or 2, I can't remember, that were like what you would think of as full stack developers. So there was like one, I would probably say there was one full stack developer, and everybody else was either a front end or a back end developer. And as the product person, I basically had to plan. Not only that, like, we went through a team split where there was one giant team that went into 2 separate teams, but I had to go through and I had to say, well, when I'm going through a team split, I have to make sure that I have either a balance of front end, back end, because you can't have just one team be a front end, all the front end developers on one team. So I was like, each team has to be able to be handed a business problem and to be able to solve the full business problem, both front end and back end, right? I, of course, would have preferred both of my teams to be just completely staffed with full stack developers so that I can hand them a problem and it doesn't matter who works on it. But that was an example where I had to deal with sort of a constraint. Because when I was bringing work in, I had to make sure that there was the back end, front end were talking to each other when we were going through planning. Like I might have written a story and then let the developer split it out between back end and front end between the two of them. But I think I was telling the story because you don't always have control as the product owner about these things. But every time that we had a session with the executives, like a higher level product session, like a product management type of session of like, this is what we're doing and whatnot, like I would highlight, because you've chosen to spend less money by hiring more junior developers that have to do this front and back end stuff, that's why we have to proceed in this fashion, where I'm basically moving half as fast, because I have from the perspective of like, yes, we're spending half the cost on developers, but we're basically moving half as fast because we only have one developer who can do a back end task, and then that task has to sit while the front end developer codes it, and then it can't go out. We are doing agile development inside the sprint, but it's sort of like
component based teams.
Yeah, it's tough.
So I actually had a fantastic experience. I don't know if this would have worked where you were at, but that used in a similar case. Now this was, it would be different, a bit different. So this was greenfield. We had 5 teams, product owners. We had created the roadmap and the beginnings of the roadmap and had decided which big portions of that we were going to be responsible for. We literally had an MVP deployable, something that we were going to deploy within 3 months, an actual product, and then building on that over the following year. And we decided to have self-selecting teams. And the manner in which we did this, so each of us as product owners came together. We knew generally what we needed to solve in the next 3, 6, 9, and 12 months, in what order, right? And we came up with a rough way to do that, a rough roadmap. We decided and kind of figured out, okay, what's the level of work? What's our expertise? What are we interested in doing? And then we came up with a general idea of kind of buckets of things that we wanted to be responsible for. Then we held a half-day session where we brought all of our development teams that were already on team, and in an effort to kind of use change management and get them in the mindset of change management, we decided to change from teams to squads, right? So using the Spotify terminology, but it helped us get into that change mindset.
Sorry, you said Spotify.
Yeah.
Let's continue.
So it's not a model, right? But we use terms, right? So the point there, though, was to actually use a different term, which got us into the change mindset, right? Mm-hmm. So all right, so we went from teams to squads. Each product owner went up and presented, here's my mission. This is what I am attempting to accomplish. Here's generally the timeline that I'm going to accomplish and what I want to accomplish.
Sure.
Then each of us went to a table, and we did have leadership there, and they laid some ground rules. And they're like, all right, developers, now what we need to accomplish and who's responsible for what. We're going to give you half an hour, 45 minutes, whatever. You're going to go around, talk, meet, decide, where do you want to work? What do you want to work on? Whom do you want to work with? Mm-hmm. It's up to you to make sure the teams are full stack, are balanced in regards to their experience. Mm-hmm. So they gave some ground rules, and they said if you can't do it on your own, then management will step in and leadership will step in and need to reorganize. Yeah. I will tell you, at the end of that half day, we didn't have to reorganize anything. As a matter of fact, we had someone who was senior and looked over and saw a team that was just mostly junior devs and said, man, they're gonna struggle. And he's like, you know what? Let me switch. Took that on himself. It was an amazing experience. And here's what happened there was they had ownership. Like all of a sudden they had ownership, right? They were able to immediately be involved, engaged, trust was established. Like it was amazing, all of these intangible things that ended up happening. That's obviously not possible in all scenarios, but gosh, if you can do it, I just can't even describe the experience and how absolutely fantastic it was.
That's great to hear, because in most organizations, especially large ones, you don't have that luxury. You get handed a list of crew. This is your team now.
I was going to say, like, my experience has been the opposite. Like the more senior developers that are in charge of things like that, or that have influence into things like that, they'll want to hand down things from team to team. Like they'll want to take away the empowerment of teams. Like it's funny because they do it to themselves. Yeah. And then they'll turn around and complain about POs doing whatever or setting unreasonable deadlines when they are the ones committing to the unreasonable deadlines in the first place. The experience that you went through, I could tell. I was going to say smell. I could tell that this trainer's background was more technical bent.
Oh yeah.
And he definitely wasn't a PO.
Yes.
Maybe he was a developer. I don't know. But
he was. Yeah.
But I could tell, because I would expect a class led by a product person to have a completely different tone than a class led by a developer or a Scrum Master, for that matter, actually. Because if you think about the entry-level CSM and the entry-level CSPO, again, I went through both of them. In my experience, probably 75%. I don't know how much the actual curriculum, but and it was a while ago too. So I recall about 75% of the content between the CSM and the CSPO is basically shared. So you take one, you're not really, you're getting a lot of duplication of learning once you go to the other one. But I would say that if the PO classes were actually led by people who did the PO job, assuming that they had some kind of say over the, that the curriculum is not mandated in some, a certain amount of the curriculum is probably mandated in some way, shape, or form. But assuming they could blow through that quickly and get on to the part that you actually care about, I would say you probably would have a different experience.
Agreed.
I have no doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really I feel like that should be a prerequisite. I mean, how many classes do you go to where you have instructors that don't have experience in the subject that they are teaching, unless you're a coach teaching science in a high school kind of thing. But Coach Khan, shout out to you. Yeah. Sorry. But yeah, I think that would make the difference. And then to your point, as far as the overlap, and I think there's so number one, I think that one of the ways that could really benefit, to your point, is to require some actual working knowledge, some industry working knowledge, working in that role, number one. And number two, since you mentioned there is so much overlap, and what I can tell you is from my experience, just 8 hours yesterday, almost all of it was spent on the Scrum Guide, which I think probably had a lot to do with the fact that this was a developer who was also a Scrum Master and knew the Scrum Guide and exactly where to point to this and that. So that was his safe space. That's what he knew. But for instance, the CSM, which is the Certified Scrum Master, which is all about the Scrum Guide, 100% front to back. If that were a prerequisite, now we create that baseline knowledge as a prerequisite and cannot have all of that duplication and actually start diving into the meat and potatoes of product ownership.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting proposition that a CSM would be a prerequisite for CSPO. I certainly agree. You need a baseline level of knowledge to build upon when we go into a class, because not everybody's on the same page, right? When you had 18 people, 19 people in your class, not everybody is at the same place. So they have to cover a certain amount. I understand that. If you had to mandate a CSM, some POs, some wannabe POs may say, why do I have to do that? I just want to pursue a PO role, not Scrum Master. So why do I have to do a CSM class first, right? That I have to pay for. So perhaps a way out, kind of like a compromise, might be that, and this is true, what I'm about to say, I would say is true of not only a CSPO class, but also a CSD or a CSM even, right? Is to have a prerequisite of the Agile Fundamentals class, which is where they cover all of basics, fundamentals of Agile, to bring everybody at that level. And then when you go in, if you're a developer taking a CSD class, you can focus on that. If you're a CSPO, you can focus on that. CSM, you focus on that. That might be a way out. The other way, if you're mandating a CSM, is, the Scrum Alliance will be happy, I'm sure, because they're getting more money, right? But a lot of the attendees may not be, because they're having to spend money on 2 certifications when all they wanted was a CSPO. It's just something to think about.
I don't know, man. I'm thinking about what the arguing point to this would be, and I'm not coming up with anything great. Like the thing that I'm coming up with that's great is just delete the middle tier certifications. Like delete them. Oh, don't delete them. Delete the first tier certifications. That's what I'm thinking of, and replace them with the CSM. Yeah. Okay, and so everyone, like, what would be the arguing point is like, well, what would be the advantage of having your POs have to go through CSM first? Like, they wouldn't want to do that because they don't care about CSM. I'm like, I understand kind of what you're saying, but this CSPO is a retread of the CSM anyway. So you might as well learn the rules of the game that you're operating in first. And like, you're basically saying, like, everybody should know the rules of the game. the developer, Scrum Master, team member, whatever, the PO, doesn't matter. You should know the rules again. You should know there are events. Here's what happens at the events. Here's how to facilitate the events. Here's what is expected during each one. Here's what you look for. I don't even know what the basic one does anymore. Like here's the basic things
that.
Leadership should be looking for. I don't know.
Yeah, it's all of that. That's what it's in the Agile Fundamentals course.
Super basic type of stuff. But then the step up from that for a Scrum Master are these what you get in the advanced CSM class. And so the step up from that for Scrum Master is, here are some advanced facilitation tactics. Here are some ways to engage your leadership. Here are some ways to climb in the organization without getting blocked, or here are some basic coaching skills to try to advance relationships and do, that kind of stuff. Whereas the PO side of that, beyond the how to facilitate ceremonies, whatever you want to call them, right? Event ceremonies. What the basic framework is. The next step up for a PO from that is, how do you manage a backlog? How do you better split stories? How do you take some things we talk about, spike stories and stuff like that aren't really well defined? Like, how do you take things when your team is not punching out the exact same widgets every time, where everything can fall into the same complexity box at the same time? Like, how do we deal with the situations where we have to deal with ambiguity in the situation? Like that kind of advanced stuff. That's what I think of for and then I don't know what you get with the professional level cert, because I don't have the professional level cert.
I mean, look, I think if you just reduce the middle layer, as you suggest, one of the things they have to do, in my opinion, is to then mandate a certain level of experience before you can get to that.
Sure.
Because you don't want people that take a class and then next weekend they take the next one, right? The advanced one. That's not going to serve them any good, or the industry. So yeah, that could work potentially, but go back to the providers of these papers, right? It's less money the minute you eliminate one of them.
Yeah, I get that.
So that's probably not going to happen either.
I get that, but this is like this is my pie in the sky version of it. It would be nice if, like Scrum Alliance, I'm just picking one out of the air. Well, like on their website, they will tell you this person has X amount of experience in the product owner role. The problem with that is, like, you would have to dig deeper to double check. Yeah. You'd have to go to their LinkedIn. I don't even know where you run a background check, require FBI fingerprinting. I don't know how deep you can get into this. There's a certain amount of like that would be the counterpoint to, like, well, don't pick a bad trainer. Huh? You know what I mean? That would be the counterpoint to that.
Yeah, I agree, absolutely.
And being recently on the Scrum Alliance website and trying to research trainers, there isn't any opportunity to do ratings on Scrum Alliance. So some of the trainers have links to, like, Trustpilot or Google reviews, but there's nothing on the Scrum Alliance website that allows you as a student to rate a trainer. Period.
Yeah, I would think that's on purpose.
I mean,
I'm
just gonna
sure,
say that,
but
yeah.
But I mean, but yes, unfortunately, that is tarnishing their. I mean, I just imagine that's tarnishing their name.
I mean, it is.
Weed out the crappy ones.
Is it? Because all these Scrum trainers are stamping out certs and paying them money.
So I can bring this back to something that's very real for everybody listening to the podcast, which is why I hate social media. Like, I hate social media because I don't know which one to pick on. I want to pick on Instagram. I want to pick on LinkedIn. I want to pick on LinkedIn because I feel they've just taken the bad ever since Microsoft bought them. They've been taking the bad from all over the place. But I want to pick on Instagram because, like, Instagram used to be like you take pictures of things, and I remember having an Instagram account when they're like you couldn't even. I don't even think you could write text. It literally was just pictures. And people would like your pictures, and I'm like, this is cool. It's just you take pictures and you post them. There's no drama involved, and I was like, it's really cool. It's like it was a thing for photographers and whatnot. Like that, it was like that type of social, like sort of like Flickr way back in the day. It's like the photographers' social media with like filters and stuff like that. So, but like now they want to be TikTok. You know what I mean? Because they're like, oh, we like money and we want people to stay in the app because that is the metric that we've rallied behind of time for users in the app in one session, and we will literally burn our entire app to the ground to increase the time that people spend in the app, and the experience is garbage. It's nothing but ads now. Yeah. So again, like the reason I kind of bring that up is like what your company prioritizes kind of changes the whole experience until the whole product is garbage.
Right.
And that's again, if the only thing you care about is like, well, we got our money. Every time they turn in a training class, they're sending us our bucks.
So I think you can make money and still be ethical. And I think there's actually an ethical issue here too, in the sense that, yeah, okay, they're making money, but with these subpar trainers and with the experience that I had yesterday with 19 other people in the room, the majority of which this was their intro into Agile, Scrum, product, period. They don't know what good is, so their basis of what good is what they experience. Their basis of what Agile and Scrum is what they saw, and I know that not to be true just because I've been in this for a little while. I'm not some OG like you guys, right? You've been a lot longer than me, but long enough to know that what I saw was a bunch of BS. So it's just a matter of time. If we're churning out these people who are being trained in a subpar manner, they are ultimately, they're ending up over a period of time just eliminating themselves, right? At what point do we surpass? So you said exponentially they've been growing as far as trainers.
Right.
What percentage of those trainers actually meet any particular level, which by the way, we don't have any way to gauge that, right? So what benchmark is any one of those actually meeting to train these people properly? And those that are falling below that benchmark and the people that are walking away trained and now certified and now on their new way to become the next trainer, this is getting watered down and worse and worse. And we wonder why we have companies who can't grasp Agile. Like, right, we can't have, we're churning out people that don't freaking know what it is.
Let me add gasoline before you jump on that one, because I want to crowbar this into the topic of, we've gone to training with people like this in training classes like this, where I'm like, I'm very worried about these people going into industry with what they've taken away from this class. And those people move into director of agile development roles, or high level roles in organizations, because they've got 15 certs or whatever, under the belts that they've gotten in within the course of 6 months, and they become the face of industry. I wanted to crowbar this into the category of, these people will come onto companies in high level positions over time, and they will be the ones to hire people. Or the other thing is, companies looking to this Agile thing, we got to get this Agile thing going on. Like, they'll look to hire these people, and they'll look to the market, and they don't have anything to grasp onto. They don't know how to hire good candidates into these positions. So they'll, more certifications the better. Like that. So the problem propagates past the certification industrial complex into industry, and now industry gets diluted down.
Yes.
I seriously talk to headhunters probably every 2 weeks. I will be talking to headhunters, and they don't know what they're looking for. The companies they were trying to recruit for don't know what they're looking for.
Absolutely.
And I don't mind sitting down. I'm not really looking for a job, but I don't mind sitting down and talking with them and talking about, like, hey, these are the questions you should be asking. These are the red flags you should be looking for. Actual experienced candidates that you're going to be getting. These are the things that if you find that they're not gonna look for these positions. Like they're gonna run from these. If these situations are happening, they're gonna run from these positions. And maybe you can take it way back to like the first 10 minutes of the podcast. Like, maybe if you have, I don't know, recruiters that are just trying to put butts in seats and collect their 20% or whatever, 50% or whatever they're trying to get. Like, maybe they could care less. Like, whatever, dude, I'm getting paid, leave me alone.
Right. It's possible.
But that's the thing. Like, the problem with the training body only caring about money is they're not helping industry at that point. So the same thing with college. You know what I mean? Just taking people's money and churning out degrees. You're not helping industry. You're just saddling people with a bunch. You're basically taking people's money, and you're not giving them something that's going to be valuable. If I'm going to put a product slant.
Sure. I would be remiss if I didn't mention what I think might be worth trying as a remedy to this situation is go back to the old days of journeymen and women. Work with somebody.
Yeah.
Forget the certifications. That's right. Forget them, I said, right?
Uh-oh.
Go back. Work with somebody for years. Work there and then have that person vouch for you. Yes, he's good. No, he's not. Yeah, he can catch a fly with one chopstick, whatever it is. That is the only way. I don't know. I keep thinking
One
about
chopstick.
Mr. Miyagi. Oh, hey, you want a challenge?
Yeah.
Just one chopstick. Right?
Seems excessive.
Yeah, a little excessive.
That was Bruce Lee, not Mr. Miyagi.
You have to
one
impale
chopstick
it.
was?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, anyway, so I think it's worth thinking through this, right? While we still have a few people that can actually do the job,
Yeah.
is for them to take under their belt. Some of these people, bring them in and groom them. Yes, I'll use that word because I mean that in that way. And groom them through the trade, and then have them come out and do the same thing. The only thing that flies against this approach is volume. You don't have certificates. You don't have volume. There are only a few people that can do this and do it justice.
Yeah.
That's what I'll say.
I love that you said that, and I will tell you that actually is something that I have been desperately looking to find an in for over the last, I would say, 6 or 8 months, because after I've decided to kind of move towards this mission, I love to teach because I love to learn, and the more that I teach, the more I learn, the more relevant I stay. I just enjoy it, and I always have. But I want to be somebody good. And so my goal has been to try to find, for instance, consulting agencies, or maybe that has some kind of a leveling approach where they bring you in and allow you to work with a team. So you can really learn the ropes. Now, I have a great understanding. I have confidence. I can get up. I can talk. But I want to do it right, and I don't want to have to use clients as I refuse to use clients as guinea pigs, and I refuse to perpetuate what I have by firsthand experienced as a huge problem in this industry as of yesterday.
Well, hats off to you for taking a stance there, because most people don't. So first of all, kudos for that. Absolutely.
Well, thank you. Yes.
I think Scrum Alliance is missing a truckload of money right there. I think, again, if we're going to dip into fixes for a second, because I totally want to get to talking about Jira. If we're going to dip into fixes for a second, talking about how can we help companies be more aware and to be more, effective in their hiring. There probably should be some kind of base level. I think the base level entry, though, I don't know if I agree with retitling it as like Agilist or whatever. I would want anyone who goes through the base level entry to be able to conduct the sessions, to be able to conduct the events, to understand the importance of each event, to be able to explain each event, and to be able to actually run them. Should they be designated as the person to run them? I would expect you could come, and honestly, you probably could like a day, and maybe these are the events. This is how to run them. A day.
Yeah.
I don't. 2 days.
So kind of almost like a mock kind of thing. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I've done mock interviews for other reasons, not particularly in that manner, but I've had to do presentations, and that would make sense to me. Are you guys familiar with Stefan Wolpers?
Yes.
Yeah, so he has some great information out there. In regards to specific interview questions for Scrum Masters, for product owners, and how to kind of like weed out the imposters, so to speak. But they really get into not just definitions, but situations, right? So in this situation, what would you do? And so it gets you into some more critical thinking and going like, all right, this is somebody who's done this before. And so he has some great material out there.
I'm trying to come at it from the perspective of, if we're going to train the whole organization, we need to encompass the whole organization. We need to encompass, okay, here are the basics. Here's what you need to be a Scrum Master, right? Maybe a day out of that. And then now if we're going to branch off into specialities, and what I think of is like the advanced versions. Again, I don't know what's in the professional, so they could knock my socks off for professional, and I could totally be like, oh, I'm wrong completely. Professional is a whole different world. I kind of suspect it's not, but who knows? I could be wrong. I would branch out to say there should be like I also don't know what's in the developer track. There should be a PO track, an advanced Scrum Master track, like some kind of advanced facilitator and change agent, et cetera, servant leader. maybe a developer track with whatever they have in development. I don't know what they have in that track right now. And then maybe the leader track, maybe the certified agile leader track encompasses HR, the matrix type manager and their role in organizations, how
finance and
budgeting works.
Yeah.
Maybe targeting more as managers, you know what I mean? But like, you still need to do the CSM first. I don't see how you jump straight into that and don't know how any of the events work.
So just to learn about those kinds of things like events and what Scrum is all about, you don't need to do a CSM. You could do a fundamentals, which is only one day, and it covers all of these things.
So kind of a different prerequisite. So basically that prerequisite that requires you to gain an understanding of Agile and whichever framework, or maybe multiple frameworks dependent on what certification you're going for. But yeah, to get those baselines in. And I think that would be applicable to each and every certification. You must understand those things.
That's exactly where I'm coming from. Because it covers Scrum and Kanban. It doesn't cover everything, but it's enough to start with.
Yeah.
And it's a one day, but plus the biggest thing is, it's not a certificate. So you can attend it, it's for free. And anybody who's a CSP, or I believe, a CSP Scrum Master or a CSP PO is entitled to teach one of these classes. So
that makes sense. And you know what? If it's going to be a free class, it should probably be an online and maybe even recorded or something. It doesn't necessarily have to be live, and should require some kind of testing, I think, too. So some kind of, anyway, I think we're getting, we don't need to plan out this whole thing. But one of the other thing I wanted to, Brian, a point I wanted to make is that none of this works unless you have leadership truly engaged in making a cultural change. Unless, there are certain situations where that's not necessarily true. So you can have an organization where you actually have kind of like a little microcosm, like you're almost a mini organization where you're broken off. And sometimes that is a development section where you're isolated from or even protected from kind of business. But if that's not the case, but even if it is, you still got leadership that's going to be on like, okay, when are we getting what? We're paying for this. Their leadership must be involved, engaged, and you talked about making this kind of organizational, or looking at this from an organizational perspective. I think that's numero uno. You have to have leadership involved, engaged, have an understanding, and truly being the change agents. So we need to figure out, so then they would need to figure out why. Why are we doing this? Because we heard Agile is cool and we're supposed to be doing this? Or what problems are we actually trying to solve? So we need to get management on board with determining that. And then they can buy into, all right, we're going to make this change. We're going to lead this change, and we're going to help to be the change agents for it.
So when you were talking about having the entry level be like an Agile fundamental class, right? I was going to say, I was going to take that one and argue about it. But now that you've introduced, there are some prerequisites organizationally in order to be effective that we might as well not bother doing, trying to do Scrum or whatever combo, any kind of Agile, anything, if we're not doing. Like there's some base level stuff that we have to do. So I started changing my mind. What I was going to say originally was, I want everyone to go through the CSM, because the CSM has some floor level understanding. Like, you got to have teams, you got to have products, you have teams that maintain the products. If you're not doing that, like, the whole model falls apart. So maybe I want everyone that comes in to go through the CSM first. That's kind of where I'm going back to. And kind of, my brain is now anchoring on that because we brought it up and it made sense in my mind. And now I'm stuck on that idea. And the reason is because no matter where you sit in the organization, no matter if you're C-level executive, no matter if you're a single developer on a single team, no matter if you're on an enabling team that's scaled across, you have 7 teams that work for you, and you're on an enabling team, you're a team of leads, and you have a bunch of teams that work under you, and you just kind of pop in, pop out as they need stuff. Doesn't matter where you're at in the organization. You are doing Scrum or Kanban, whatever, right? Scrum or Kanban, one or the other. You're doing Scrum or Kanban at some level. So everywhere in your organization, even at the C-suite, you're doing probably a executive Kanban level, right? Program leads level, you might be doing Scrum, you might be doing Kanban, whatever. You need certain base level entry skills. You need to know what the Scrum Master's job is, because at any time you could be called on that team to do the Scrum Master's job. Or you might be doing Kanban in support of other teams doing Scrum, but at your level in the program, you're doing Kanban. So you need to understand the correct way to do Kanban, the proper way. I don't know. Correct has connotations. So whatever, you kind of understand. And I think the further up in the organization, the more important it is to understand the process that your teams at lower and lower levels in the organization, that you understand the processes they're using. So you know what processes they're using, so the appropriate, most effective way to go about communicating with them. That's a much better way of saying, not to not make stupid requests.
But if I'll put on my hat that I don't like.
Okay,
contrarian hat.
All right.
Most organizations are doing that. Before we were doing Agile, we were doing Waterfall, and we had project managers, and now they're Scrum Masters. We got them. Same people. Forget about leadership. Right?
That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense to me. So you don't have an empowered Scrum Master. You don't have an empowered product owner unless you have leadership that's going to empower them and respect them. I think to your point, I'm like going back to that. I'm buying into your CSM kind of double down because
it's the entry. It's the price you got to pay to enter the dance. Like
right.
you need to know you need to know how to dance before we let you in. Like we can't have a bunch of clowns around the dance floor who aren't going to be involved in dancing, because we just have a bunch of dudes standing around. You need to know how to dance to get in. That's your price of admission.
We're having a hard enough time getting leadership to take Cal classes, never mind CSM.
I think the CSM's more important potentially than a Cal class. To understand and respect the role and understand their role in empowering those people to be able to do their job. In my experience, the biggest impediment to a product owner or a Scrum Master being able to actually do their job appropriately is leadership.
So a lot of leadership that are in those positions here, directors and above, they don't want to take a class that's a Scrum Master class. We have Scrum Masters for that.
Call it something
They're
different.
above that.
Well,
dress it up,
That's
make
what I'm
it
saying.
pretty.
They don't have Scrum Masters for that. First of all,
They have project managers with a Scrum Master hat on.
I've never seen. Yeah, I was gonna say
Right?
I've never seen an organization that has leadership with that attitude that actually does have Scrum Masters.
Yeah.
They just have labels. That's what they
So
have.
make some pretty little like fancy dancy special leadership class that is basically just a CSM class. It's an introduction to Agile and Scrum. They get to understand exactly what a Scrum Master does, exactly what a product owner does, and how they must support them, that they must empower and respect their developers, and that we're going to have self-organizing, and we're going to trust our teams. They're going to learn about psychological safety. So I think...
Yeah, listen, we don't disagree. I'm just thinking that selling that 2-day class to senior level leadership is a taller climb than selling them a 6-hour class that walks them through basics of agility, which includes their role in it.
Yeah,
it does include their role in it.
Yeah. Now that I definitely do not disagree with. I think the curriculum needs to be broken up in a way where you could break it up to divide it over the course of an entire week to get people who are otherwise very busy, read between the lines, like people who are completely slaves to their calendar who just can't break out.
It's a badge of honor for them.
Yeah, I know it is. You need to break it up where people that are in those positions can make time for it.
Yeah.
And it needs to be broken up that way. Now the way it's sold and that kind of stuff, like that's it's aside the point. The point that we're on now is building a better curriculum. Again, the reason I brought this up is I think that if you're going to build a base curriculum, I definitely agree with you. Agile fundamentals. Why are we doing this? I mean, what is Agile? Why are we doing it? I mean, where does it contrast and compare to Waterfall or whatever nonsense? Somebody, I wish I could remember the quote. Somebody who's talking about small companies is like the most successful small companies. Like you think of small companies, you think of like chaos in their processes. You know what I mean? They just kind of are working on whatever lays fires. But like if you really think about it, sit down and think about it for a second, that's actually not true. Like small companies, the lines of communications are much cleaner and shorter.
Fewer of them.
Fewer.
Yeah.
So when they have something that is not covered in an existing process, it is much faster for them to just stop what they're doing, come up with a process for the thing that they've encountered that is new or not covered, and then get back to business. So the idea is by introducing everyone to CSM / because now we've introduced like Kanban training in the mix, by introducing everyone to like, these are the 2 processes that can basically cover everything in your business, and giving them a day or 2 to cover, here are the basics for each of these processes. Now you can apply them in your organization at different levels. And from those 2, from that one thing, from that fundamental class, now you get certifications. Now you can arrange the basic process for whatever your company is using. Now from here, you become a specialist. Do you want to become a specialist in the product domain? Do you want to become a specialist in the facilitation / coaching / Scrum Master? There's not a good name for it, right? Domain. Do you want to be a specialist in the leadership domain? Those are the tracks. But is that a better curriculum? If Agile Alliance, Scrum Alliance, whatever comes to us and it's like, oh, you can change our search. What do you think? Stormy, what do you think? Give me a better track. Give me a suggestion. What would your suggestion be for a better curriculum?
A better curriculum than what they have would be to not compartmentalize from the get-go, to your point. Just have the basics covered so everybody at least understands the same language, right? And they're not lost when somebody says something. So when a developer hears, for example, value chain, they don't go, what the heck's one of those? Right?
Or roll their eyes because
or roll their eyes. Here we go. Yeah. Right. So for all of those purposes, we need a level of understanding. It's sort of like learning your ABCs. Otherwise you're not speaking the same language. Yeah. So do that, and then synthesize on top of it. To your point, some things that go to more specificity toward development, for example, Scrum Masters coaching, product ownership. But I almost want to say abolish those advanced level ones for the time being. Let people grow at that point, and then have them do the other. So if you came up through, let's say, a Scrum Master track, I'll call it that, have them take some classes later once they've matured a little on the product ownership class, and have them play the role. Because it's one thing to sit in a class and take a CSPO, and it's another to play the role of a product owner. I'm not suggesting you throw them out to the wolves. Maybe a product owner can take them under their wing for a project for a little while. And that's what I think might be worth doing.
Okay, just an idea here. So we do a lot of industries, they have cross training, right? So we will actually have, for instance, even in development, where we'll have developers who are working on something very specific. Maybe they're getting bored, maybe they're getting tired, maybe we need some cross-pollination. But maybe that's part of the requirements for elevating kind of that career path, is being able to share that knowledge and pass that on to someone as a CSPO to a CSM or vice versa. So I don't know, just throwing some things out there. But that cross-pollination, and they're all part of the same team. Right. And I think actually developers would be great to put in the mix here too. Not necessarily, I don't need to, as a PO, to know development. But it wouldn't be a bad idea for me to sit with and understand the process and how they're going through, and then the same for me, to really kind of understand that process. That creates, again, empathy, trust, right? So those things, they do help to build great team dynamics as well.
I agree. Play almost like day in the life off, but obviously do it over a longer period of time here and there. You don't have to do that for a week sitting next to them, but as a PO, for you, it might be useful to know what they mean when they say, merge my code to the main line. So what the heck's one of those? That sounds like a train station. Whatever, right? So I think it's useful to at least normalize the language and then see some of the challenges that they face, right? And vice versa, I'm sure.
Yes.
What about the product managers out there that are like pseudo product managers? Like they're actually product marketing managers.
Okay, so first you need to define product manager.
Yeah, you can't really. Well, like product manager is like I can't think of I even think that Scrum Master is kind of more settled than product manager at this point. I think product manager is more in the Wild West, kind of evolving than than even Scrum Master is. Because when I see product, even going back to the last podcast when you were here, Stormy, like there's a lot of product managers out there that they don't even have a development team.
Yes.
They just hand things off to the engineering manager, and the engineering manager takes care of it. And then not only could they not hang in a technical discussion, and they would not be useful in discussion of the technical roadmap versus whatever roadmap versus features or whatever like that. They're not even interested in being in that conversation. And their bosses completely support them of like, well, why would you get you're a product, you're not technical in any way, why would you be in that conversation? Like that makes me super scared because I'm like that the quality of the product and the technical foundation on which the product is built is just as important of are we making the customer happy to me. But then, like, I understand, like, somebody might be screaming at me in the comments, like, writing angry tweets of, like, no, Brian, you're totally wrong. You don't need to know any of that to be an effective product manager. Dropping marketing out and then making $20,000 more or whatever. Like, that.
I think, literally, we could have an entire freaking podcast on this topic.
It would be a rant.
It would be so that I have so many thoughts. Like, I have, like, literally, I have so many opinions and thoughts on this. And particularly coming out of the conference last week, and the transition that I am witnessing happen, and the confusion in nomenclature between product owner and product manager, and what I seem to be witnessing happening where product manager is becoming the term, which is overtaking product owner. And I have some opinions on or hypothesis on why that's happening. But yeah, I'm not even going to get into it, but I got a lot to say about what you just said.
I feel a future rantcast coming on.
Good.
We do rantcasts on those.
I need to collect my thoughts on that one because I feel to be able to portray that category on the podcast, I need to be able to support both sides before I bring it up, which I can't right now. But we haven't even talked about Jira.
Let's talk about Jira.
That's a whole other podcast too. No, that's cool.
No, I can't. Then I can talk about Jira. Like listen, like if you want to badmouth Jira, you are on the right podcast because I love to badmouth Jira. However, I will say, Jira is like, dude, you could implement the most simplistic version of Jira, Jira Kanban board, and Jira backlog, and don't add anything new to your workflow or whatever, and have it be super basic and get your needs met. If you're going to overcomplicate Jira and have a bunch of stuff and add the time, now, I realize I'm making the case for Jira, which scares me, quite frankly. However, Jira does have some built-in fields that are bad. Okay, some time in hours estimation fields and stuff that are just like bonehead. Why did you add those?
Well, but they don't have to be included.
You can turn them off.
Yes.
But by default, they are on.
Okay.
Why would you start with everything as a project in Jira?
Right. Well,
that's where I'd start. Forget about individual fields. But talking about fields, right? So you could estimate in Jira now in fractional story points. Story points are confusing enough out there. Forget about fractional. Who cares? Who dies on that hill when it's 2 points or 2.5 points and not 3?
Well, you can turn off the story point field and not estimate.
No, but you want that. You just don't want fractional.
Well, again, they give you an open field to do whatever you want with. If you wanted to implement Jira in hardcore mode, I would turn off the story point field and just count that, because their software inherently lets you count the number of stories. Sure. It lets you do your estimates by story points, hours, number of stories. So I would just turn off that hour estimate field, and I'd turn off the story point field, and I'd just do it in number of stories. And I'd set it to hard code, and then I'd hide everything. I'd create business value. I'd hide everything else, and it would be Jira on hardcore mode. And each team would have their own dashboard. Again, it's there's a simple mode of Jira. Like, again, the issue is Atlassian is one of those companies that like I just went on. I had in the last podcast. I didn't put it in the recording. I didn't keep it in the recording. But one of the last times we were here, I showed one of the features that I had voted on that I thought that would be very, very valuable. And one of their product managers got on and was like, "Oh, we decided that we're going to de-scope this and we weren't going to do it anymore because there's no money." He didn't phrase it this way, but he basically said there's no money in this feature for us. Mm-hmm. And it basically was allowing you to create multiple dashboards that were aggregate between multiple teams up to a higher dashboard. So basically showing multiple teams on one dashboard together. And it would have been a very helpful feature. Mm-hmm. Again, there's no money in that for Atlassian. So he was the hatchet man for that feature. But I went and I looked into this particular, I'm not going to name him because it would just be poor behavior. Yeah, my poor form. But he had been like an intern like 18 months ago, and it was obviously his first job. He's just doing what he's told to do, right? It wasn't like
or following a script.
Yeah, but the funny thing is, I started like the funny thing with paying for LinkedIn is it automatically like pops up his coworkers and all that. I started going through their backgrounds and stuff like that, and I was like, oh, that's so weird. Like all their product managers are all this like straight out of school intern first job kind of like do what I say or else. And I'm like, I'm starting to get a good scope of your organization and what they're really about. But I can't really blame Atlassian. Like they're not really like I told somebody very recently. I was like, they're not like the principle centered and driven type of agilist type of people. Like they may have been that type of company at one point. I'm sure all those people are gone by now. It's the people that are like, if we sell the implementation, we got to get more butts in seats on a license so we can charge more, and then we got to force them to buy more plugins because we get 50% of every plugin that we sell, and like that's their business model now. Mm-hmm. So much like the Instagram example I used before, like because their incentive model pushes a certain behavior, the case for evil has taken over rather than the case for good propagating forward. Like that is the way that has happened. So I like to rip on Jira. My real feeling is if you keep it simple, there are certain things you can do. There are certain plugins that actually are worth it. I, on one hand, can't bring myself to pay any money to Atlassian in any way, shape, or form, so I work around plugins. But if you keep it simple, it can do the job.
If you keep it simple, you can just use Trello.
No, I hate Trello more than I hate Jira. People might be surprised by that. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Well, let us know what you think about this and any other topics you want to talk about or you want us to talk about. That's a bad summary, but that's where we're at.
I don't think there's a better summary, quite honestly. I like send us your certification hate mail.
Yeah, you could do that. Let us know. And subscribe and like.
Oh, that's sad. Good one. Yeah,
some subscriptions, some ideas on what your thoughts are and how that you might solve this problem and keep trainers accountable or create some. What's the central location to make sure that to bring, as far as reviews are concerned, so that we have an opportunity to go and look and have to review these trainers in an appropriate manner.
Yeah, that's funny that the PO certifications, they don't have something as simple as a net promoter score for their POs. That's funny that the
irony
don't use the irony of not.
Yep.